Hello there and welcome. Hope you're enjoying your new year, 2023. If you were with me last time, you know I began a two-part teaching I'm calling How to Have the Best New Year Ever, based primarily on Psalm 118, verse 24, that says, "This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." And if you remember from our first time last week, the first New Year resolution I gave you was this one: I resolve to see each day as a gift from God. Because the psalmist here was literally saying, this is the day the Lord has made for you, for me. Now imagine this. Before time even existed, God purposed to gift me and grace me and you with today. It's His precious gift to each of us. And when I realize that, like I said last week, it causes me to esteem and cherish my days, to make the most out of them, rather than absent-mindedly just taking them for granted. So resolution 1, see each day as a gift from God. But then today, 2 more. Secondly, I resolve to live one day at a time, which makes great sense, really, in that yesterday is gone. Tomorrow may never be. This is the day God has made for us. And for sure, we have seasons where we look back and we learn from yesterday, or where we dream and plan for tomorrow, but we still must live in today. Now, you may be the exception, and I hope you are. But frankly, I have known way many people over the years who've never learned this particular truth. For instance, do you know someone who's always looking over their shoulder, always looking in the rearview mirror of their life? And they speak incessantly and always about, those good old days, right? My grandfather was that way. He would always talk to us grandkids about his good old days, when he had to walk 2 miles to school and 2 miles home every day, right? And there was always blowing snow with deep drifts that he had to wade through to get home, right? In fact, I have a picture of it. Here it is. You know what I'm talking about, right? And he would tell us about his home life. And he would talk about, we didn't have a washer and a dryer, no TV, no indoor plumbing. And I can remember thinking to myself as a little kid, wow, I thank God I wasn't born in the good old days. Can you agree with that? What I am saying is that there are way too many who are just so dissatisfied and so unhappy and so discouraged about their situation, about their lot in life, that they just live in the past. Their days are consumed with what they used to have, what they used to do, the way they used to live, remembering how it was to try to forget how it is. But just as tragic are those who cannot live one day at a time because they're consumed by living in tomorrow, hoping, longing for it to get better one day. When this might happen or when that might take place. I read a story one time about a psychologist who interviewed 3,000 people, and he asked them one question: what are you living for? And he gave them a choice of 5 responses. The overwhelming answer from that survey, the overwhelming answer that was chosen was this answer: we are enduring today and living for tomorrow. Now get that. We're just enduring. We're just trying to get through the day in hopes that it will be better tomorrow. And by the way, don't get me wrong. Life does throw some things at us that cause us to hope desperately for a better tomorrow. I mean, for sure. But obsessing about it, always living for tomorrow, will never help us move into a solution-oriented lifestyle right now. Because living in tomorrow or yesterday will not erase today. That means our troubles we failed to confront yesterday just become our troubles today. And when we refuse to face them today, guess what? They will just be there ready to beat us down again tomorrow. And by the way, not every little negative thing that happens to us is meant to defeat us. Sometimes, in fact, if we approach the negative from God's perspective, It can actually be helpful. And it can actually be a blessing over the long term. That's why the Apostle Paul was inspired to write Romans 8:28, where he said, "For we know that all things work together for our own good." You see, a certain amount of difficulty in life, again, when approached correctly, can cause us to reevaluate our lives and our priorities, which then moves us into making some new determinations of what is really valuable as compared to what is incidental and fruitless. Besides that, stewing about tomorrow or fretting over yesterday won't do anything but pull those clouds over today's sunshine. Like the lady who said, "Hey, don't tell me worry doesn't do any good. Most of what I worry about never happens." Think about that. Ain't that the truth? I resolve to see every day as a gift from God. I resolve to live one day at a time. And then this last one, I resolve to make every day a love day. Now stay with me. This is, by the way, this is more difficult than it sounds, making each day a love day. And the reason why is because loving people involves people. And people are just not always easy to love. Would you agree with that? In fact, sometimes love hurts. Sometimes love is painful. Sometimes love gets very, very uncomfortable. That's why in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus spoke about how easy it was to love those who love you, but it was very difficult to love those who did not love you or those who are your enemies. Interestingly enough, too, after preaching those particular words, he came down from the mountain and he immediately had an encounter with one of those hard-to-love types, a leper, also known in Jesus' day as an untouchable. Now listen to a few verses here in Matthew chapter 8. When Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." And immediately he was cleansed of his leprosy. Now, of all the diseases described in the Bible, there was no disease more diabolical than leprosy. It caused horror and pain to just bombard that person on a daily basis. So when Jesus healed a leper, it was a huge and spectacular deal. Something else interesting here about this healing is that it says Jesus was moved with compassion and touched him. Now, Jesus didn't have to do that, did he? I mean, oftentimes Jesus healed others by simply speaking a word. So what's the deal with this? Why touch this man? I believe Jesus did that to show compassion to the man and to affirm him and reassure him. Because no doubt it had been so long since this man had known human touch, because he was untouchable. It had been so long since he had known any kind of human interaction that he was no doubt starving for it. And Jesus knew that. By the way, did you know that the average person today, that some of you men pay attention if you're a husband, did you know that the average person today needs 7 meaningful touches per day to be emotionally healthy? That's true. That's scientific. The average person needs 7 meaningful touches per day to be emotionally healthy. And for some of you guys, that doesn't mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm done. I did good today with my wife. No. That's not how it goes. Now, someone might argue with me here, but Pastor, I'm not a toucher. I'm not into that kind of stuff. And hey, I get that, but it's something that can be overcome in your life if you're willing. A few years ago, I went to the home of a friend who had terminal cancer. He was a good man, but not necessarily a touchy-feely type of guy. In fact, he was not a touchy-feely type of guy. He was known as being a non-hugger who would stick his hand way out when shaking just to keep you from going in any further and maybe getting a hug. Well, on this day, he was sitting on his back patio, and he just lived a few weeks after this, but he was sitting on his patio at a little table, and I walked over to him, and I knew how he was, so I put out my hand to shake his. And there, sitting in that chair, he looked up at me and stretched out his arms. And I thought, he actually wants a hug. And as I knelt down to hug him, he just sort of relaxed in my embrace, making these contented sounds under his breath as I held him. Did you ever pull a blanket around you on a cold night and you snuggled down and went, That's how my friend responded to that hug. As I held him, it was, So what was happening? What was happening was not only did my friend want that hug, guess what? He needed that hug. And I'll be honest here and say that I hope when I get old, stop it. Those of you know me, stop it. I hope when I get old, and my mind starts getting all goofy, stop it again. I hope when I get older, my mind starts to get all goofy. Anyway, when that time comes for me, I hope there will be some of maybe you around me, along with my family, who will still want to touch me and express your love to me. Because I can promise you, I will still want and need that. So Jesus touched this leper and healed him, and it was a difficult situation. It was an uncomfortable situation, especially for those standing around watching it all happen. But listen, such is love, yes? Certainly all of you are familiar with the story of Mother Teresa and her life's work among the untouchables of Calcutta. Michael Christensen, in his book, City Streets, City People, tells of his visit to see Mother Teresa and his work with her. Within a few weeks of arriving, he said this, I saw enough blood and ooze and suffering to last a lifetime. He then recounted in his book, one day he was with Mother Teresa when she picked up a dying baby out of the gutter whose hands and feet had been eaten off by the rats. Christensen said, I was almost destroyed beyond despair. The next day, as he struggled with the misery and the pain he had witnessed, Mother Teresa asked him, Michael, did you see Jesus? What do you mean? Oh, today when we were out this morning, did you see Jesus? Christensen said that he had to honestly answer Mother Teresa, no, I'm sorry, I did not see Jesus. He then writes that Mother Teresa took his hand in hers and opened and closed his 5 fingers. Opened and closed his 5 fingers. And as she spoke to him regarding the life of Christ, she spoke 5 words over and over again as she touched his fingers. You did it to me. Which are Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 25, where he told his disciples, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger. You invited me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. And the disciples responded, but Lord, when did we do all those things for you? And Jesus' response back was, when you do it even unto the least of humanity, you did it unto me. Now listen, you most likely will never be part of healing lepers. But every time you reach out to someone in 2023 who is in need, someone who is hurting, or someone that is grieving or in pain, every time those things happen, if you will really listen, you too will surely hear, you did it unto me. Because the reality is this, Jesus is the best of us, He's the worst of us, He is all of us. Hey, there are all sorts of people coming in and out of our lives that need to be touched. And there will be in this year 2023, right? Some need to be touched physically. Some need to be touched emotionally. Some need to be touched spiritually. But they all need to be touched with the love of Jesus Christ our Lord. And we are the touchers. We are the lovers. We are the hands and the feet of our Lord. Well, I hope this has helped you, maybe blessed you. God bless you this week. Have a great one and a great 2023. I'll be back with a new series starting next week, the Lord willing, and I hope to see you right here. God bless. See you soon.